So welcome to Manchester Museum and the South Asia Gallery, a landmark partnership with the British Museum. We've just come into the gallery space, and this is a lobby area. And the first thing that you see just behind me is a screen which has the animation of the South Asia Gallery transliterated in 7 different languages. And those chosen to be the most spoken languages of South Asia diaspora in Manchester, as well as the most spoken across South Asia. And around the animation, you get to see this really beautiful, detailed mural, which is a specific commissioned artwork by the Singh twins, who are internationally renowned South Asian artists. So the Singh twins describe it themselves as a personal vision titled Riches to Rags, Rags to Riches, which are the 3 narrative threads running through the artwork to tell the stories reflecting the South Asian experience in its transition from ancient through British colonialism and into post-colonial modern times. The artwork isn't intended to be a comprehensive representation of the entirety of diaspora experiences, but rather it is intended as a summary of the overview of the gallery. It is an emotional map of South Asia and reflects the twins' own identity and experience as British artists of dual Indian and English descent. It also explores interconnected and hidden histories which challenge prejudice, negative racial stereotyping, and misconceptions about cultural identity and ownership. And this mural really sets the tone for the rest of the gallery. The stories, objects, and themes within the mural you can see represent what you will actually see in its displays. And the Singh twins have taken all of the conversations and discussions for the displays to weave and to be woven into the mural. And as you move into the gallery display areas, you see behind me this screen, which is a short film. It really tells the visitor how this gallery has been developed. It's unique because it's not been developed or curated in the traditional way that galleries are normally curated in museums. It's been co-curated with community members. We've been working for 5 years with an inspiring group of 30 individuals made up from different backgrounds and disciplines. So we have teachers, we have academics, we have writers, journalists, community leaders, musicians and artists, students and others, who came together because they really wanted to share their lived experiences and stories that they felt really passionate about. And that is what's made the content for this first iteration of the South Asia Gallery. And it really is their passion and drive for wanting to tell those stories that makes the South Asia Gallery humanistic. Since 2018, we've been working with the collective to develop content for this gallery, and it became obvious really early on that this gallery will be a story-led gallery because people really wanted to share stories about their own lived experiences or things that they really felt passionate about. And the anthologies are past and present, lived environments, science and innovation, sound, music and dance, British Asian, and movement and empire. In this first iteration, we have a combination of British Museum objects, some from our own collections at Manchester Museum. We have other institutions that have given us their objects on loan because there have been gaps for representing the stories that we wanted to show. And we also have individual collective members' personal objects to showcase and be able to share. And if you can imagine, 30 people had many, many stories to share. And it was really important that we created some criteria for this gallery to break down stereotypes and myths around South Asia, to highlight women, particularly in this gallery, to make a connection of the Manchester and South Asia as a region. The group also wanted to highlight the impact of colonial rule and how that still exists and impacts British South Asian people today. Stories were then developed with individual members and anthology groups. And for our past and present anthology, where I'm standing today, One of the displays is around the Indus Valley, and we have a combination of objects from the British Museum and Manchester Museum. And the past and present anthology group really wanted to highlight these great finds from the Indus Valley region, and how early civilization was and what life must have been like for those people. You can see that through the objects that are displayed here. This group also wanted to showcase that it wasn't always the Western external person to the region who was a great finder of these finds. It was the local people who were the real archaeologists. And we have some really beautiful objects in this display to showcase what life must have been like in that time. We have some beautiful jewellery. We have some fragments of bangles. We also have a toy cart, which will show what children would have played with objects in those days. And it really gives you an insight as to the advancement of that civilization at that time. I'm often asked which is my favourite object in the South Asia Gallery, and as a first generation British-born South Asian, I think I can connect to all of the objects in the displays and all of the stories. But the object that I'm standing in front of at the moment is a pot. It's a water pot. It's personally significant to me because it reminds me of my very first visit to Pakistan in 1985. And it was at a time when the place where I was going to stay did not have electricity. And these pots I found in all of the homes that we visited. And for me, they were the equivalent of a water cooler or a fridge. The water in these pots was really cool. And at the height of summer when we went, it was basically a lifesaver. And what was really nice about seeing these pots across the different homes that we went to was sometimes they were placed outside family homes. So people that were just wandering or walking around the villages could actually help themselves because of the heat of the summer, you would be thirsty. And what's really nice about this pot is that you still see them across South Asia, even when there is no electricity. It's a reminder of the natural resources that South Asia holds. And this really links back to the last anthology, Past and Present. And that's what the South Asia Gallery does. It has threads and links to the next display that you will be coming across. And I just really love the pot because it's just a simple pot, but it holds so much to the story as well. For our first iteration of the South Asia Gallery, we were really privileged to have this enormous portrait behind me. It's a self-portrait of one of our co-curators, Azra Motella. It sits in our British Asian anthology, and Azra really wanted to showcase the multiple layers to being British South Asian and how that label doesn't justify the richness and the dual multiple identities that a South Asian diasporan person holds. Azra wants to also highlight the stereotypical depictions of South Asian women, and she breaks down all of those myths and stereotypes. She wears a traditional dress, but on her feet she has Nike trainers. And it really is that hybridity of bringing different elements of different cultures and heritage that makes up a person. And I think Azra does that really well in the portrait, and we're really privileged to have that in our gallery. The piece looks like it's unfinished. You have a trainer that isn't coloured in, as with the leg of one of the chair. And that, Azra says, is because identities are never complete and they're always evolving over time. The portrait is titled I Beg You to Define Me, and it is really one of our wow pieces in this iteration. One of the stories that sits within our movement and empire anthology is the contribution of South Asians to the World War efforts. I really want to showcase this story because I actually did not know that South Asians contributed in particularly to the First World War. This story has been developed by one of our co-curators, Dalit Awam, who on his visit to Pakistan found that his great-grandfather had contributed to the war effort, and he found his great-grandfather's uniform, which you see behind me. And Dalit brought the uniform back and said to the Manchester Museum, this would be a great object for a future story at the South Asia Gallery, and it has been carefully looked after by our conservation team. I think this story is very important for future generations and young people to actually be able to understand their connections to Britain. And it really gives insights into the contributions that South Asia diaspora and their families have made over many, many years. So the South Asia contribution to the British war efforts during both World Wars resulted in the movement of the South Asian diaspora across Europe. More than 1 million soldiers from the Indian subcontinent served in the British Army during the First World War, and more than 74,000 died in conflict. During the Second World War, the British Indian Army expanded to over 2 million troops, becoming the largest voluntary army in history. These multilingual recruitment posters showed the different persuasive tools that were adopted to recruit soldiers to the British Indian Army. Many South Asians decided to join the army due to promises of greater social status and opportunities. During a time when economic hardship, the army offered stability and a better and more regular income. The anthologies that we've talked about sit on the outer circle of the space behind me, and this is our project space. The project space is a place where we continuously evolve and grow on the stories that you see in the displays. And we're able to do this because we have a 3-sided projection, as well as a space which can be closed off to the rest of the gallery. It is a space that will generate conversations and where people can come together to watch film and to hear music. We've used it for various programs. So we've had performance and music, we've had poetry, spoken word, and it is a place where we continuously work with the new people to showcase the diversity and richness of South Asia. And it allows us to bring in new voices and new stories and collaborations and partnerships. It is a great space. We've had children singing and dancing and listening to the different iterations of the projection. And we hope that we will continuously create an archive that we can then dip into for future iterations. Since opening of South Asia Gallery in February 2023, we've had overwhelmingly positive responses to its stories and displays. The ambition going forwards is for South Asia Gallery to grow and build on its content and present South Asia in all of its richness and diversity. For this first iteration, we've worked with 30 co-curators to bring their lived experiences and stories to the gallery. And we're well aware that it's impossible to capture everything about South Asia in one gallery iteration. This is why this space will continue to evolve and will continue to co-curate and collaborate with new people moving forwards so that we can represent different cultures, different voices, different countries, and different experiences. The commitment is to change content to create future iterations for the gallery, and that means working alongside new community co-curators, groups of people that are not yet visible in the gallery displays and stories. Please do get in touch if you feel that this is something that you'd like to be part of, and we'd love to see you in our future iterations.